Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer, who is on the East Coast. And we've got two games on Thursday, which only means Nate and I were able to spend even more time on the bets that we're looking at here. We're coming off a really good Wednesday, Nate. I would call it a bit of a turnaround. We were like sliding by like 0.2 units here and there, but finally went up on the day last night at 1.65 units as we went 3-1 in both best bets and play-up props, sprinkling units here and there on a decent-sized slate. So I think we can more adequately allocate our bankroll here tonight on just two games that we have to choose from. This is Best Bets. We also have play-up props up for you guys, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along each and every weekday this season. Also want you to head to thelines.com, check everything out up on the site, and use that odds finder tool that we have up there. You can make sure that you're getting the best odds available to you from all of these books giving us bets this NBA season. Let's go ahead and get into your first best bet, Nate, on one of these two games that we're talking about.
This is a classic NBA situation, right? Classic. Stars out for the Warriors, and the Thunder still sitting at -2, -2.5, depending on your book. I will take it, and I don't think I'm stepping in any cheese here because the Thunder are such a hungry young team that's lost 10 of their last 11 to the Warriors, and they're not going to let up just because Steph Curry's not playing. So I think the motivation is something I can count on. And the fact that the Warriors have not been good all year, and Steph Curry has been absolutely dragging them to any wins. And so you saw they were unable to beat the Wolves after all those shenanigans without Steph, even though Ant had an off night. I mean, it's the heart of your offense and the heart of your defense both out now with Draymond suspended for 5 games. The Thunder have been hot since losing a shootout with the Warriors where they were missing SGA. So if they can get that many points without their offensive leader, 139 it was, and then now SGA playing at a very high level comes in, I just trust them to outscore this Warriors squad, which like, where are the points going to come from? Andrew Wiggins, 90 offensive rating on the season. Clay, 102. Kuminga, 100. I mean, we were excited about him, but he has no bag offensively. Maybe playing with CP3 more will spark him a little bit as just like a young Amari Stoudemire. But that's all we're talking about here is CP3 running a million pick and rolls with Saric, Kuminga, and then hoping for the rookie B-Pod to have another huge game, I guess, to keep them in it. I mean, he dragged them to even being competitive with Minnesota after those ejections, and I just don't think that's going to be a recipe for success against OKC's length. They are just so big at every possession and playing incredible defense. Since that shootout, second in defensive rating, league high 11 steals per game, number 3 opponents 3-point shooting, allowing the 6th fewest fast break points and points off turnovers. They are giving up free throws, but I mean, Warriors are 30th in paint points this year. They have no rim pressure. They're going to have no rim pressure without Steph Curry, especially. Like, I don't see them getting to the line without him. Clay is not attacking CP3 at this stage. It's just it's old guys against young guys, and SGA has been up in this matchup, 31 plus in 3 of his last 4 with the Warriors. And I know you were a little scared to go over 31.5. It is a huge number for SGA, but Golden State is giving up the most free throws in their last 5 games. So SGA probably a lock for like 25 points. If you want to play this 25 plus in a win, I think you're probably getting great odds there.
Yeah, I mean, everything in this game comes down to like there's really good points on both sides for why it could be a blowout where the Thunder score a bunch of points and somehow drag this total over 226.5 because they put up like 120, 124 by themselves, right? And then you don't need quite as much from the Warriors, who I don't see putting up 110 points in this game. That's for sure. So I think a team total on them under is probably a fair assumption. Like, the thing that also has me feeling like I'm okay with the Thunder because it's a trap game. I cannot think on the trap game meter, this has to be a 9.8-ish on that scale. Like, it's up there, man, because of exactly what you said. Stars out, bets up. First of all, it's No Bet Thursdays, a classic staple here on the Coast to Coast show, where we know that wonky, weird things happen on NBA Thursdays on 2 or 3 game slates. And everyone's just like, well, of course the Thunder are going to win this game with just a skeleton crew of guys playing for the Warriors. And the thing is like, how unrealistic is it to see Chris Paul control the entirety of this game, just send it back to the days of being an MVP caliber player, just for one night? Clay is so mad that he was the catalyst for that giant melee, whatever, right? Like in the beginning of that game, that like he comes out and fires and finally hits more. That finally gets over 20 points for the first time this season, which is what that would be for Clay if he gets over 20. Or is it going to just be the same continues where the Warriors can't guard down low and have to foul every single time that a guy gets into the paint, which is SGA's entire bag. Like the majority of his bag is being able to make you off balance, get fouls, get an easy mid-range shot, etc., or get all the way to the rim. And I think you're going to be able to do that without Draymond. You said that they're without their best player on defense and offense. They're probably without their second most important player on offense as well. Last year, without Day-Day, they had a worse offensive rating in the 9 games that he missed than they did in the 11 games that Steph missed, or 26 games rather, that Steph missed last season. So obviously smaller sample size, but he's pretty important to that offense as well as the swing man in an offense that relies on the ball moving a lot. So all of that said, I'm still going to take the Thunder at -2.5 with you and just step right in it, because I also think they were just in this situation with the Kings where the Kings were without Fox in a game where everyone was like, the Thunder have to win this. And in their sort of youthful lapse in judgment, they probably didn't come as hungry as they could have and should have to that game against a very, at this point, solid and high chemistry Kings team. So I do think they're going to be a little bit more ready for that in this one. And guarding against that, right? So I follow you on that bet essentially, and really don't have too much to say outside of this offense without Steph. It's going to be worse than you've ever seen, and I think this is finally the year to where if you've been saying for 5 years that Klay Thompson's going to have a really down year, this might be the one that you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I hope OKC's looked at their against the spread records and saw that they were 1-5 as favorites. They were barely ever favored last year, and they let it down every single time. And it's all right, let's take that step forward as a team and not just be the plucky underdog. Let's take care of business when we should. I like how you went through all these things could happen on Thursday. CP3 turns it back, Clay gets wicked hot. You didn't throw in, but Andrew Wiggins turns into the NBA Finals MVP runner-up. Right. And shuts down SGA. All that has to happen. Not some of that. Right. All of that has to happen for the Warriors to win this game. OKC is so much better than them on paper right now. And SGA is just such a reliable source of offense. He is a system, as we always say, and everyone should be able to play off him with nobody really able to guard him. So yep. I'm willing to lay just 2 points here. I don't really see how they let up here, and hopefully they do.
It would take a lot of anomalies. Yeah,
so, exactly. The other game is a game the Miami Heat are playing, and we're going to talk about it. The Miami Heat, who are maybe they're going to be a consistent streaky team this year after just coming out with no firepower, have now won 5 straight, including our 6 straight and 4 on the road. I'm still not taking a Heat money line or win. I mean, although full discrepancy, I did take a money line parlay with them in the Thunder just because I think it's more likely they win this game. What I am doing is the same game parlay here on the conservative side. Bam, 15 points, 10 rebounds, and Mikal Bridges, 20 points. And that gets you slightly plus odds. And I just think both outcomes are extremely likely here based on the Nets' offensive shift lately. Where the Cam Thomas has been out for 3.5 games now. Bridges, a lot higher usage, a lot more 3-point attempts from the team in general. I thought about adding Cam Johnson here if you wanted, just 2 threes maybe from him, which he's done consistently. But, I mean, this is a game with a really low total. Should be a lot of rebounding opportunities, even though the pace will be slow. And Bam is just on a tear right now. I believe he has 6 straight double-doubles in those 6 straight wins, so that's plus 120 if you want to just continue with that trend. Bam, double-double in a win. The Nets do have Nick Claxton in there finally, so they're not just giving up everything to centers. But Bam, he averages 19 and 10 in his 6 with Nick Claxton. That includes 2 games that were kind of skewed by blowouts, where he played 28 minutes. He did go 21 and 14 against the Nets with no Claxton when these teams met earlier. More relevant is how the Nets functioned in that game. They won. Game was actually played at a pretty good pace, 102. Cam Thomas went 4 for 19, just like hogging usage, not getting buckets. Bridges still got his 21 on a lower 28% usage rate. And if you look at his without splits here, 30.5% usage. That's 5 percentage points higher than the rest of the season when Cam Thomas has been out, including 35% his last 2 with the Nets. So I trust him to get 20 here. He averages 31. He had a huge game against Miami last year when these teams were jockeying for playoff position. But I just trust him to get 20 because the Nets, they don't have much else with Cam Thomas out in terms of shot creation.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't throw Miami's money line in this bet, because as much as we are also no bet Thursdays, we've also turned into no bet Miami during the regular season. Not even just because like you don't know when they're going to play everybody. You don't know when their best offensive guys are going to try. Mainly I'm talking about Jimmy Butler. Bam tries every single night on every single play. I think we know that. But when you look at like Jimmy and the boys, as we've come to call them, because it's usually just him and a band of rapscallions that were picked up maybe from like free agency or, undrafted guys. So like that is something we don't always know about. I do think he's going to have the desire to win tonight. They did lose the last game that they just played against the Nets. They've actually been losing a lot of games to the Nets. They got waxed last year in a couple of different games that Jimmy was actually playing in. So I think he's going to try. But like the thing that really stood out to me when this is the first game that I really looked at Miami. Like I haven't really capped them because I see them playing the Wizards or whomever, and I'm just like, skip. Where else are we going on the slate? But for this one, we're forced to look at them. And so finally, I'm like, wow, Bam. Is this the year that you're another step forward in the offensive ways that you sort of displayed when you were in the finals last year at times as well, right? When you had like 20 a game for most of the finals. So yes, I think that is going to continue to be the case. He has great battles with Claxton. I wanted to go under with Claxton with how good Bam is at limiting other team centers. But Claxton's been fine against him, getting, above right around the 11 points that he is supposed to get in this game too. So he's going to be battling. Like it's going to be a close, good game. I can't see a blowout on either side, which is a main reason why I wouldn't really want to pick a side in this one. But Miami, even as like you said, they might just be streaky all season. There's also a pretty heavy correlation between how good the team they're playing is and whether or not they win at this point, right? They won 6 in a row versus Washington, depleted Lakers, Memphis, the Hawks, the Spurs, and the Hornets. They beat Detroit the first game of the year and as well. So then, their 4-game losing streak, like I think you mentioned briefly, Boston, Minnesota, Milwaukee, and this Brooklyn team. Like, yeah, I think there's revenge in the air, but like there's also something to the idea that if they're going to bring this mid-level roster to these matchups with teams that are better than them or as good as them, then it's going to be a dogfight for them consistently. So we'll see what they can do without Hero tonight. But I would almost prefer to just take Brooklyn to continue to kind of own this team a little bit the way they did last year, if anything. But let me finish off with what I've been calling a lean, Nate. But I think I am going to hit it, and that's the only reason I've called it a lean is because like I try not to like call something a best bet if I really don't want to bet it, and I'm not going to bet it. But this one I'm about to get into because it's under 2. I think you can still get some 227.5. Hopefully by the time you guys see this video in a minute, you'll be able to get some under 227.5 for this game. The 226.5 probably isn't bad either. Honestly, it's only 1 point, obviously, but you're losing a little bit of value. It opened at 228. It's going to be a CP3 game. So like, I think either way that you cut this thing, right? We talked about a minute ago, what are the ways that this goes wrong for the Thunder and how do the Warriors pull this one out? There's needs to be so many things that happen there. It's hard to depend on that, but you can depend on CP3 slowing this thing down no matter what. There's no world in which they run up and down the court, in my opinion, with this team. Like, yes, they have some guys that can do it in terms of Kuminga and Wiggins that will be in there with a lot of minutes in this one, but they also have pick and roll heavy CP3. They have Dario Saric. They have Kevon Looney, who's going to get a ton of minutes as well. So that he's now basically the only rim protector on the team at this point, outside of like Kuminga and maybe Gary Payton II, right? Like who could see some 5. So that's going to be slow city, right? Even the bench, which is going to get more minutes for the Warriors, They play faster than the starters, but that's also just how benches are. They play way faster in smaller amount of minutes than the starters do. The Warriors play at the slowest pace of any bench unit in the league right now. So I think even the guys that are going to be coming in, while some of them are a bit more athletic and like to get up and down a bunch, they're also just have to play within the system of the offense. They're not the guys that are the focal points on offense like Kuminga and Gary Payton. They don't have the ball in their hands making things happen. That's where CP3 comes into play. He and Kevon Looney are the two slowest players on the court. When they're on the court, Warriors play at the slowest pace that they do. Fastest pace is when both those guys are off the floor, obviously. The defense without Steph is not really that much worse. It actually goes down. The defensive rating gets a little bit worse without Steph, but they also play at a slower pace and give up fewer points and are having to grind out more half-court possessions. They are 7th in limiting second chance points and 8th in limiting opponents' points off turnovers, which sounds like a surprise because they've always been number one in like allowing their opponents to get points off of turnovers. Chris Paul's in town. That's a huge part of it now for why they're not doing that. And that's just emblematic of what's going to be occur in this game. They do give up a ton of free throws, and that's why you get scared. That's why I'm not taking a shot at Gilgeous under, because he is going to get at least 8 free throw attempts in this game. And if he gets to 10, probably good for at least 30 points in this game. So if he eats there, that's where, the points come from. I hate, obviously, a game where they're slowing down stopping the clock to get more points. Never good for an under. But at the same time, like, this OKC team has been playing really great defense against rosters that are about to look a lot like this Warriors one. They just held Sacramento, Phoenix, and San Antonio all under their team totals, a 96.5 defensive rating, which is good for best in the league over those 3 games. I think there is something to the idea that they're getting a little bit more confident together with Chet as their anchor down low, who I think is in line for another big game after he had 19 on this team last time. So it's just all leads to an under, man. Like, how surprised are you going to be if this thing is like 108, 101 when we end, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think maybe people are concerned because the Warriors, they went under with the Wolves in the last 2, and they're like, oh, the Wolves defense is amazing though. Like, that's why that happened. But I mean, there's some early small sample size stuff with the Wolves, and clearly they were not up to the challenge with Booker and KD last night, which shows us that, like, maybe they're not that amazing. Maybe they just had some good spots thus far, and the Warriors offense is just not going to be fast paced without Steph Curry. It's going to take them so long to get a good shot. Like, how often are you going to see Chris Paul like pointing at young guys like, you need to go there, and then like 8 seconds is left on the shot clock, and the pace of this game is going to be like, oh man, this is not happening for an over for sure. Yeah. I would definitely not take the over despite the shootout that we saw last time these teams played. So yeah, might as well lean under.
Yeah, that ain't it. Like, the game theory is just leading itself so much to like actually OKC style Chris Paul being in control of this game. If you remember when he was playing with the Thunder, and there was a lot of 98 to 88 games that were played by the Oklahoma City Thunder when they were led by Chris Paul, where he was trying to do the same thing he's doing here. It's almost like Chris Paul and the boys in this game, because he's going to have to really lead guys like Pajemski and hope that they can, like, someone's going to have to come out of there, go crazy for the Warriors that you would not expect, like another Pajemski game or something to that effect for them to stick around and keep the points up in this one. But that is all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Continue to follow along, like and subscribe to that page. Check out the play of props that we also have up for you guys. Up more than 13 and a half units on the season. So we'll keep trucking along, grinding them out with you guys till we see you next. Happy betting.